Biologically speaking, mosquitoes aren't just a minor annoyance. They are the single most prolific serial killers in human history. Today, a solitary mosquito buzzing inside a closed, climate-controlled bedroom is enough to ruin your entire night's sleep. So, picture this. No windows, no mosquito nets, no synthetic bug spray. You are lying on the damp floor of an exposed cave 50,000 years ago. How did our ancestors manage to sleep without being literally eaten alive? Let's untangle this. The honest answer isn't that early humans, from the ancient hominins at Dmanisi to the Neanderthals of Ice Age Europe, just had thicker skin and gritted their teeth. They didn't just passively endure the swarm as some unfortunate fact of nature. They were, genuinely, masterful ecological chemists. And mastering this primitive chemical warfare is exactly what allowed early human communities to sleep, recover, and allow their elders to live long enough to actually help raise the next generation, proving that things like the grandmother hypothesis relied just as much on keeping the bugs away as they did on finding food. The real mystery here isn't why ancient humans dedicated so much energy to fighting off insects. It's why we modern humans often mistake a bug bite for a mere inconvenience. In the wild, an itch is never just an itch. A single bite from a disease-carrying mosquito, an infected tick, or a thriving colony of cave-dwelling bedbugs didn't just mean a restless night of tossing and turning. It meant a highly probable death sentence. Without modern antibiotics, a deeply scratched bite quickly turns into a lethal, fever-inducing infection. Without modern medicine, a single malaria outbreak simply wipes out the entire camp. We constantly focus on the megafauna, the big cats, the wolves, the apex predators actively hunting you under the cover of darkness. But while a predator might deliver a swift, violent end, parasites operate entirely differently. They are a genuinely insidious threat that slowly, methodically drains your life force and compromises your immune system while you lie there completely immobile and defenseless. Surviving the night wasn't just about building a wall against the lions. It was a brutal, non-stop microscopic war. Let's talk about fire, because it adds a genuinely important additional layer to this entire conversation that we touched on in a previous discussion about ancient shelter. When we picture early humans huddled tightly around a central hearth, we almost automatically assume the fire was there purely for thermoregulation, or perhaps to keep a wandering cave lion at a safe distance. But the heat and the light were only half the equation. The smoke was equally critical. In fact, a smoldering, smoky fire was arguably the world's first large-scale, highly effective mosquito coil. To understand why this worked so well, you have to look at how these parasites actually hunt. Mosquitoes don't just blindly stumble into you in the pitch black. They are highly specialized biological homing missiles that track the exact carbon dioxide you exhale. Every single time a sleeping human breathes out, they are loudly broadcasting their exact coordinates. Smoke fundamentally disrupts this entire tracking system. A thick, lingering layer of wood smoke hanging in the enclosed air of a shelter physically scrambles a mosquito's CO2 receptors, effectively rendering them completely blind and disoriented. So, organizing a communal sleeping arrangement directly around a shared fire provided a brilliant, entirely passive dual benefit. The flames kept the massive, teeth-bearing predators at a distance, while the smoke generated a massive, continuous chemical shield against the microscopic killers, requiring absolutely no extra effort from the completely defenseless, sleeping humans below. Researchers studying early human settlements have documented something genuinely fascinating when it comes to exactly what our ancestors were actually sleeping on. We tend to culturally imagine early humans just collapsing onto the bare, packed dirt of a cave floor, maybe tossing down a rough animal pelt if they were lucky. But the archaeological record reveals a level of ancient chemistry that is frankly mind-blowing. Take Border Cave in South Africa, a site dating back roughly 200,000 years. The humans living there weren't just sleeping on the ground. They were engineering highly specific, multi-layered beds, relying on an incredibly deep, sophisticated understanding of local ethnobotany. They started their beds with a thick, deliberate base layer of ash. Now, why ash? Because wood ash is highly alkaline and acts as a powerful natural desiccant. If a bedbug, a tick, or a mite tries to crawl through a layer of ash to reach a sleeping human, the ash physically cuts into their exoskeleton and completely dehydrates them. It isn't just dirt, it is a lethal, impenetrable microscopic minefield. But they didn't stop there. On top of this chemical ash barrier, These early humans laid down woven bundles of specific, broad-leaved plants. And they didn't just grab whatever happened to be soft or nearby. They selectively harvested specific plant species known to contain naturally occurring camphor and mild toxins that actively repel flying insects. They were, quite literally, sleeping on a carefully formulated botanical insect repellent. And here is the genuinely brilliant part. What happens when, after a few weeks or months, that bedding inevitably starts accumulating pests despite all these defenses? They didn't just abandon the cave or blindly suffer through the bites. They deliberately burned the entire bed right where it lay. That controlled fire instantly eradicated any lingering parasites, and the burned plant matter conveniently created a brand new, perfectly clean layer of desiccating ash to serve as the foundation for the next bed. It was an infinitely renewing, perfectly calibrated system of pest control, achieved hundreds of thousands of years before the invention of the very first modern bug spray. But what happens when the sun comes up? The ash beds and the smoke screens worked brilliantly inside the safety of the cave, but early humans were active foragers and persistence hunters. Out in the open, whether tracking prey across the sweltering plains or navigating the damp, dense forests of Neanderthal Europe, you are moving, and you are sweating. And human sweat is essentially a loud, chemical dinner bell for every single mosquito within a mile radius. So, how did they survive the relentless daylight swarms without going completely insane? The honest answer is that they adopted a highly effective, entirely practical prehistoric skincare routine. If you've ever watched a massive elephant or a wild boar deliberately wallowing in a mud pit, you are watching the exact survival masterclass our ancestors almost certainly copied. By slathering their exposed skin in thick mud or a dense paste created by mixing rendered animal fat with clay, they achieved two vital things. First, it completely masked the natural body odor and sweat markers that insects use to track us. Second, it created a hardened physical armor over the skin. It certainly wasn't glamorous, but a mosquito's delicate proboscis genuinely cannot pierce a baked layer of clay and fat. Let's untangle what that actually means from a survival perspective. They didn't just vainly swat at the swarm, they literally wore the earth itself to become completely invisible to it. Now here's a question worth taking seriously, rather than just assuming the answer. Does all this brilliant prehistoric chemistry mean early humans were living entirely bite-free? The honest answer is no. Of course not. They absolutely still got bitten. They still dealt with fleas and mites. But let's untangle how biology actually operates. Evolution doesn't optimize for perfect, frictionless comfort. It optimizes for net survival advantage. It just needs to keep you alive and healthy enough to reproduce. Plus, there is a genuinely fascinating difference in how their bodies likely reacted to those inevitable bites. When a modern human gets a mosquito bite, our highly sheltered immune system totally overreacts, creating a massive, maddeningly itchy welt. For ancient populations, from early hominins at Dmanisi to the Neanderthals, constant, lifelong exposure meant their baseline immune response was almost certainly muted. They didn't swell up. They didn't lose their minds over a single itch. They didn't need 100% perfection. They just needed a system good enough to let them survive the night. For hundreds of thousands of years, going to sleep wasn't a peaceful retreat. It was a nightly, high-stakes campaign of ecological and chemical warfare. Let's untangle what that actually means for us today. The honest answer is that human survival, whether for a Neanderthal sheltering in a damp cave or the wise elders who made the grandmother hypothesis possible, depended entirely on winning that microscopic war every single night. The fact that you can sleep completely undisturbed by blood-sucking parasites is a genuinely extraordinary, profoundly recent privilege in the long span of our evolution. And maybe that's worth sitting with for a moment, the next time you casually plug in a modern mosquito repellent, turn off the bedside lamp, and curl up under a clean, warm blanket. That sense of total unbothered peace while you are utterly defenseless isn't the biological default. It is a modern luxury, built on the back of ancient smoke, ash beds, and mud, one heavily defended night at a time.